everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I read 20 Kindle Unlimited books, and I'm going to tell you which ones are probably worth it, which ones are probably not. There's going to be someone here that you have probably heard of. There's going to be someone here that you've never heard of, because I don't even know how they ended up on my Kindle Unlimited. But nonetheless, I read these 20 books. I have notes because I had to read these 20 books in the past few weeks, and I realized there's a theme going on with whatever books I put to be shelved for later on there. There's a lot of fae romances in here. There's a lot of fierce heroines. And after probably book 2, I started getting a little lost and forgetting what the first book was that I read. So I quickly jotted down some different things. So if you see me looking down, it's because I have these notes here that I typed up because my writing was, horrendous as well. I couldn't even read it. So I'm going to go over those 20 books. I'm not going to do a deep dive into them. This video would be way too long if I did that. But I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of the synopsis, what it's about, kind of my thoughts and my, rating that I gave it. And also I do want to tell you before we continue on with this video, please make sure that you check trigger warnings for any of these books. I'm not going to say it for every one of them, but just know going in that even the ones that may seem very light and, fun, they have some trigger warnings, but there are also some really dark ones on here. So just make sure you're aware of that. If any of these intrigue you, that you want to go back and read, so then that way you can make sure that it's not going to trigger you and upset you. So before we get in, make sure that you like this video, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. I am still weeding through my November TBR. I did get through my big thick book, so definitely be looking out for a review on that one. But I am also going to try something new. I'm going to try to put timestamps and everything in the video, and I'm going to try to leave them in the description below. If I don't, then I apologize. I'm still kind of fairly new to this, but the first one that I want to talk about is The Broken and Sinned, which is book 1 in the Everlasting Curse series by G. Bailey. Now, this book is a dark fantasy paranormal romance. It is a reverse harem, so definitely know that going into it. But what I wrote down as a brief synopsis of the book was, it's Rihanna Dark's 18th birthday. She is kidnapped and taken to a place called the Onyx. She is to be sold at the auction, where 2 vampire princes come perusing through the humans looking to buy. And so, of course, she's kidnapped. She's taken, there. She is there to be sold, basically as a slave. And these 2, princes, they come along. Their names are Maddox and Rain. Now, with Maddox and Rain, they were a little uninteresting, to say the least. They definitely were vying for her attention at the same time, which is where the reverse harem gets started. But Rihanna is a very fierce heroine where, she definitely will fight back. She definitely doesn't take a lot of their, banter or, things like that. But here's where I got a little lost in the book. It seemed very YA. I thought this was going to be an adult book. I thought this was going to be really spicy and really dark and all of this stuff. And I was quite surprised at how childish, not just how Rihanna acted, but also how Maddox and Rain acted. It was very, very childish, very YA. The story was good. I definitely liked, the plot and the story development, and the romance was okay as well. I just felt like this book could have been more. If maybe they were aged up a little bit more, maybe if there was a little bit more spice involved or some dark plots involved. But nonetheless, I gave this, about 2.5 stars. I thought it was an okay read. Definitely not one that I am going to continue on with because, like I said, it seemed a little childish. But if you're looking for touch her and you die trope, enemies to lovers, you might really like this. But just know going in that it's not going to be as adult as you think it will be. So the next book in the 20 books that I read is Kiss the Fae, which is book 1 in the Vicious Fairies series by Natalia Jaster. So what I wrote down from the brief synopsis of this book was there are 3 rules Lark has vowed to live by: never cross into fairy, never bargain with the fae, and never fall for the enemy. While being forced into fairy by trying to outrun a threat, she crosses paths with a fae who wants to make her a deal if she can survive the 13 days laid out in the bargain. Now, this is a new adult fantasy romance. There is steam in here, so I was quite pleased with that. It was a notch up from the previous book that I read. Lark, our female character, is protecting her sister. She is a very protective sibling. She will do anything for her, as well as sacrifice herself if that means that, her sister will be safe. Now, Cerulean is our male main character, and he's the fae that, strikes the bargain. He was raised in the mountains where she's having to basically survive for 13 days. But the one thing that I was very delighted about was the way that Cerulean comes across. He's a very alpha brooding, fae, but the chemistry between him and Lark is very instant almost. Now, I wouldn't say it's insta love, but you can feel the chemistry between them. You can feel that there will be something. I really liked that he pushes her, but she pushes back. And so I really enjoyed this. It was very angsty. There was adventure. I did give it 3.5 stars. One thing that did draw me into this book was whenever I was going through Amazon, or I don't even know where I found this book at, it's been on my KU for a while, was that for fans of The Labyrinth. And I will say that if you love The Labyrinth that had David Bowie in it, if you love that, you're going to love this book because it does a very good retelling of it, but it's very loose. It's not like the actual movie, but it is. There are parts that you can take from it where you're like, oh, I get the reference. So if you love The Labyrinth and if you love fantasy romances with steam, pick this book up. I gave it 3.5 stars. It is enemies to lovers, and there is steamy scenes. So just make sure that you check that before going into it. But, loved it. Absolutely loved that book. The next book that I read is An Enchantment of Thorns, which is book 1 in a Court of Fairy Tale series by Helena Rockwood. So this book I put on my KU because it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And anytime a synopsis says that, I have to try it out because sometimes you'll get good retellings, sometimes you won't. But this one is about Jaster. She is the town green witch, which, grows flowers and herbs and things, to not just keep the boundaries safe from the Folkwood and her town, so the fae can't cross over, but also it helps the townspeople whenever they are sick or needing care. So she is basically the medicine woman and all of this stuff that's keeping the town going. But every year there's a tithe. And what that means is whenever women reach, I think it's 18 or 19, they go through this tithe where they get dressed up or whatever. The beast from the Folkwood comes and takes one of the girls back to the Fae courts, and you never hear from them again. No one knows what happens to them or anything like that. So Jaster believes that whenever you're taken, you're killed or you're put into slavery. She thinks that it's this horrible thing that goes on, and her half-sister is wanting to be chosen. So Jaster is upset about it. That's where, it kind of kicks off. I absolutely loved Jaster's character because she was very feisty and she was very not going to take anyone's crap kind of thing. But then Thorn, who is the beast fae, He is the one that picks Aster, takes her back to the Fae courts, and of course he's living in this place that has all these enchantments and curses everywhere. So he strikes a bargain with her that he will give her her freedom if she helps him release these curses and everything like that, because she actually has magic and she is powerful. So I loved it. I gave it a 4-star. It was a little insta-lovey, if I will say. It wasn't just like instant, but it was very, very drastic and quick. But I loved their banter. I loved this retelling of it. There was way more to the story than I thought that there would be. I thought it would just be, oh, she finds out that he's not an evil person and, falls in love. But there was just way more to unravel and way more secrets that are going on in the Fae court. So if you definitely love a Fae fantasy romance and you love a Beauty and the Beast retelling, definitely pick this one up. It was very original, in a sense that, the story about her being a green witch and being taken to the Folkwood and all of these things was very original, but you can tell that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So the next book that I read was The Magic Trials, which is book 1 in the Half-Blood Academy series by Meg Xuemei. I don't know how to say her last name. But basically, Marigold is a hunter during the Great Merge, where Lucifer has brought hell to Earth. He is currently ruling one half of Earth, and the 4 demigods are ruling the other half. As one of the demigods sets their sights on Marigold, she cannot escape his clutches. She is given a choice to go to Half-Blood Academy and undergo the trials if she has god blood in her, or die trying. Her team will be spared if she agrees, or killed if she doesn't. When Marigold's ancient power awakens, the entire Earth should be kneeling in fear. This is a reverse harem paranormal fantasy romance. This is absolutely amazing. This draws on mythology, where you have Lucifer, and then you have the 4 horsemen, which is the 4 demigods. You have war, you have famine, you have pestilence, you have all of that. So it's really, really good. I did only give this book, 3 stars, because it was good in the fact that it was a mythology, folklore retelling. I really thought that it was very unique, and I thought that the characters that were built up and the story development was very fleshed out. What I didn't like about this was that I felt like once the romance started between Marigold and War, who is one of the 4 demigods, I felt like that was the focal point. I felt like the plot and the story and the world around them just kind of halted, and I felt like that the romance took the focal point and that we didn't really get much story progression. So for me, that's what I took out of it. I definitely strongly will recommend this to anyone that loves the mythology and the retellings of the 4 horsemen, or if you want a good story that has to deal with like post-apocalyptic dystopian vibes, then definitely pick this book up. I thought it was okay. It was 3 stars, but it's definitely not going to make it on my top 10 of the year. So I absolutely loved that. The next one, keeping with the dystopian theme, I read A Secret in Onyx, which is book 1 in the Onyx series by Jesikah Florence. Now, this book, the world has come to an end. There's no more electricity, and most of the humanity has dropped dead. Saphira and her boyfriend Tor are racing across the continent in this dystopian world when Tor is kidnapped. Saphira will do anything she can to get him back, even as far as to go train with the Fae and help them with a task. This is a dystopian Fae fantasy romance, which I didn't know how was going to work, because you get dystopian and then a Fae romance, and I just did not know how the author was going to get that put together. I did give it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was. Tor tells her to go to this door in this area, and that's where she needs to get help, which enter, Rune, who is the broody Fae that is going to be training her. And, they have a lot of banter. It's almost like an enemies thing, but yes, she's starting to trust him because she is trying to get Tor back. But she can't stay away from Rune. She just can't. Every time she tries to, just be away from him and just not like him and all of these things, she's drawn back to him for whatever reason. So I really loved this. I loved how, she went in thinking one thing about the Fae, and then she realizes that Rune He is ruthless, and he does give off the same Fae vibes that she is used to. But Rune actually has a heart of gold, and so he starts to show that to her, and then she starts to melt a little bit and thaw out and actually, start trusting him a little bit. And just the story progression between these two was absolutely amazing. So if you like a dystopian world that is very well fleshed out and built very well by the author, and if you like a little Fae romance, try this book, because I think that you might enjoy this a lot more than you think, because I sure did. The next book was kind of a letdown, and it is A Veil of Truth and Trickery, which is book 1 in the Veiled Realm series by Analeigh Ford. So this book is about Delphine. She was Fae marked when she was born, but of course no one has seen the Fae in decades, until one night they show up on Delphine's doorstep demanding she come with them back to the Fae realm. Delphine navigates court politics and intrigue, but she fights through the trickery to see the 4 remaining courts as they are and the 4 Fae that rule them. As she delves deeper, she realizes that she might be the monster in the story after all. So this is a reverse harem Fae fantasy romance. You can see the theme here that we're going with. So basically, this was a letdown for me, because Delphine and the 4 Fae that are the love interests have no, they're just like two-dimensional. They have like no personality. There is a lot of telling. There's not any showing in this book at all. You're told something, and then whenever there's a little dabble of a show, then you are told again that you need to be told this. So it was very much a letdown to me, because I feel like this book had a lot of potential, especially whenever she is navigating the 4 Fae courts and she realizes that not everything is as it seems and what she thought that it was going to be. But also, it gave me some ACOTAR vibes. And of course, as you can tell in my Sarah J. Maas books behind me, I love ACOTAR. But this was not done well at all. I gave it 2 stars because I felt like, the characters were fleshed out a little bit. Like there was some things that was keeping me turning the pages. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it just did not keep delivering. So definitely a 2-star. You may want to pick this up if you are an ACOTAR fan. And if you do like court politics, you may not find that the characters are as, two-dimensional as I did. You may really love this world. So definitely don't just take my 2-star review and almost DNF as gold, because everybody takes something out of it. But that's how I felt with it. The next book that I read was Magic of the Demon Fae, which is book 1 of the Demon Fae series by Ava Mason. So Blade has lived her life by 3 rules. Again, 3 rules. Never talk to a demon, never tell a demon who you are, and never ever kiss one of them. These rules are tattooed in her soul by how much she has been told to live by them, until one day 3 gorgeous demons show up and something inside Blade tells her to trust them. The way they talk, how they act protective of her, and they have her swooning fast. She is taken to hell with them, and she is okay with that, even though her life is threatened at every turn. Again, this is a paranormal romance reverse harem, and there is quite a lot of spice in it. Blade is a strong heroine. I do like that she is fierce a little bit. The love interests, though, they seem too desperate. Like, it's way too insta-lovey. Like, whenever they set eyes on her, they're just like, gotta have her, like just swarming her. And, it's kind of like a fated mates kind of trope where they recognize who she is and they recognize what she's about. So I get that, but I just needed a little bit more build-up than that. I did give this 1.5 stars because the story lacked a lot. The plot development just was not there. I felt like there was absolutely no world building. I feel like this is a fated mates book, and they're in love, they're gonna go to hell, and they're just gonna have sex. And I just don't feel like there was anything to it, and I was honestly not that sad about it because I don't even know where I got this book at, but gave it a try. 1.5 stars. Will not continue this series. So the next one I am not even going to address where I found this book. Because it was one of those Facebook, you scroll and it just tells you, things like based on what you've clicked on. I don't know how I clicked on any of these that caused this to happen. But this is Cursed Vampire by Brogan Thomas. She's a half unicorn and a half bloodsucker. I don't know how that worked. Her name is True Dennison. She is barely coping with loss in her family and quickly spiraling. When she is sick with an illness, she's terrified the supernatural community will learn of her true bloodline. But basically, she gets caught. I stopped at that point. I can't give you really any plot or how the story ends or anything. It was absolutely horrid. 1 star. If I continued the book, it is a DNF. I did not continue this. I think the cover looks pretty. I was very intrigued with a half bloodsucker, half unicorn type thing, but it did not deliver at all. And it's an urban fantasy paranormal romance, which urban fantasy is hit or miss for me anyway. So definitely not picking that book up again. Never again. So I don't know what happened. I DNF'd it. You may like it. It kind of had a good, plot thing where I thought that it was going to be good. You may love it. May want to try it. So anyway, the next one is called Curse of Shadows and Thorns, book 1 in the Broken Kingdom series by L.J. Andrews. Elisa's family stole the Fae crown and currently sits on the throne. Elise is not made for the life of a royalty. She would rather sneak off with the servants and have the time of her life instead of walk around the courts as someone who is born from royalty. One day, Elisa's life is turned upside down when she is told by her uncle that she is to marry. If she refuses to marry, then her father will pay the price for her betrayal. She is given to Legion, who is the master of the negotiations for marriage. When a coup happens, she and Legion flee the castle into obscurity when more questions arise on who is to sit on the throne truly, and how does Legion fall into all of this. So this is a fantasy romance. There's a lot of high stakes involved. There is a lot of adventure. There are secrets. There are betrayals. This book I gave 4 stars with. It was absolutely amazing. The story progression made sense. The world made sense. The characters were true to who they were, and they didn't try to be somebody they're not. I really do like that Elise did this whole gambling thing whenever royalty is not supposed to do that. So I really liked that about her. Legion is battling a curse that has been set on him, and he's trying to keep her safe because he knows that she is royalty. But then all of a sudden, some things from Legion's past start coming to surface, and now they're trying to unravel what's going on with that. How does Legion play into the coup? How does Legion play into who sits on the throne? Elise and Legion's romance was absolutely amazing. I loved it. So definitely pick this up if you like a high stakes, court intrigue, that there's a lot of betrayals and secrets and things to unravel, and a mystery to solve, and a very good romance to back it up. So I highly recommend this book. The next one that I read is called Fate Calling, and it's book 1 in the Celtic Fae series by Lindsay Grace. This is another home run for me. It was a 4-star. Aislinn Morgan only has her sister left, and they live in the Highlands of Scotland. She enjoys hiking through the Isle of Skye when one day she is taken to the Fae realm where she needs to protect her sister. She is willing to do almost anything to get her back and protect her when she meets Kieran. He is a beastly Fae, and she is willing to bargain with him. What she doesn't realize is that fate has other decisions made for her, and she is about to lose not just a bargain, but her heart as well. So this is another Fae fantasy romance. It is another Beauty and the Beast retelling. I seemed to have had a trend whenever I was getting Kindle Unlimited books at one point in time. But I do like Kieran. He's a broody male. He's not one that's, just going to let her just up and walk around and leave. But also she's very fierce. So she is willing to do anything it takes for her sister because that's the only family she has. And whenever she strikes the bargain, she does not realize that they are actually fated mates and she is going to fall in love with him. And I loved that about this book. It is a happily ever after ending. I do love the progression about how she fights him at the beginning and he's very broody and very, like alpha, but then he starts to warm to her, she starts to warm to him, and they start to lean on each other, and the story was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. So I highly recommend that. If you want a beautiful story set in Scotland at the very beginning with a Beauty and the Beast retelling and a fae fantasy romance, this one is definitely a good one to pick up because it does have a happily ever after. The next book is called Legacy, Book 1 in the Biodome Chronicles by Jesikah Sundin. I DNF'd this book. I don't know what I was thinking. This is about Leaf and Willow. They are siblings and they are put into this make-believe medieval village. Okay? So you're talking about us being in the future, this dome being around them where they have no idea that the world around them is actually full of technology and so far advanced, and they're put into this experiment. So think of The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. So it's kind of like that. Don't go into the woods, don't do any of this stuff, blah blah blah. I DNF'd this. This is a dystopian sci-fi fantasy romance because all of a sudden she finds an outsider named Lilian, where there is more to Lilian than she knows, and also his past connects with her past. And so you're unraveling that mystery, but I just had to stop. I could not do this anymore. I am not a sci-fi person with dystopian vibes. So I DNF'd it. That's just my preference. I don't think the writing was bad. I think that the plot and everything made sense and that it was very well done, but I just couldn't stay in the story because it is not something that I prefer. So on to the next one is Forbidden Obsession it's book 1 in the Whitmore Elite series by J.A. Owenby. This is one of them that is not a fantasy. It is a college bully romance with the stepbrother trope in it. So if any of that triggers you, please don't, read it. Ariana is stuck at the mercy of her stepbrother Jagger. He finds a sex tape that she had done a while back, and he is holding it over her head. He blackmails her and basically gets her to do whatever it is that he wants, but she is not somebody that is going to take things sitting down. She does fight back whenever she needs to, so she lets him think that he has all of this control when in reality he doesn't. So I really liked this bully romance because it wasn't overly done. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay. It wasn't a magnificent read or something that I'm willing to revisit, but in the time that I read it, I enjoyed it. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this one, so I will highly recommend checking that out. But if you like the stepbrother trope, if you like a bully romance, this book will be very good for you, and I think that you will love this one. The next one is kind of a shocker because I'd never heard of this book before, but it is called Daughter of Summer, and it is book 1 in the Immortal series by Victoria Williams. Now, I don't know if this book is just fairly new out there or if it's just not talked about, but it was good. I actually ended up giving it 4 stars. So basically, I don't know if you say if it's Ira, but Ira is set to marry the immortal Prince Dagon. She knows that this arranged marriage will be very beneficial for her homeland. However, when Dagon decides to deceive her and show up as the emissary instead of who he truly is, Ira finds herself falling for the emissary and not who her betrothed is, so she decides to lock her memories away with a secret keeper. So the fantasy romance with the Fae, again, it's very unique because whenever he goes to the court to meet her, he doesn't want her to fear him, so he goes as the emissary, but in return, he's getting feelings for her, she's getting feelings for him, and she feels like she's betraying herself, so she needs to lock her memories away so she doesn't betray her betrothed. And then whenever she locks her memories away, she forgets who he is. So whenever he comes to collect her, she's terrified of him. And it was so good. So good. I just cannot say that enough. I loved this story. I thought it was so good. I definitely want to read the next book in this series because I never thought a unique story like that would work, but it did, and I was very happy. The next book is Prince of the Dark Fae by Lindsay Devin. This one is another Fae fantasy romance, but there is no spice in here. So if you want not really a clean romance, because they do kiss and, you know, there are things that are suggested, but you don't have it on page. But Lily and Isla are sisters. They're seamstresses for the Fae. Nothing glamorous about their life until one day the king and queen of the Light Fae accuse Isla of stealing a pendant that when she found she was real young on the ground that has brought her good luck. She is shunned and called a witch, which makes her blood turn cold. She is claimed by the Dark Fae King, where she is terrified and scared. However, when things start heating up between them, Isla learns to really like where she is and finally embrace who she is. So this is a dark Fae fantasy romance, like I said, and dark in the fact of like kidnapping and different things like that, but there's not spice in here. I definitely gave this 3 stars. It was okay. It wasn't an amazing read again, but it kept me wanting to turn the page. I felt like this book definitely was one that the story made sense and the characters made sense, but I felt like it was lacking something, and it may have been maybe more backstory with Lily and Isla, or maybe, you know, getting more from the perspective of different characters. But it was an okay read. If you like things like that, if you like the Married to Magic series with like Deal with an Elf King or Dance with a Fae Prince, you will love this one, but just do not expect any spice in it. The next one is called The Lost and Chosen, which is book 1 in the Lost Centennial series by Ivy Asher. So this book is about Venna. She is great at keeping secrets, keeping her secrets to herself, because she does have, you know, monsters lurking in the shadows after her. She has markings appearing all over her body that she has no idea why. And then also she can conjure weapons out of thin air. She is a fierce fighter, and all of a sudden, all of her, you know, secrets are exposed. And now, all of a sudden, she is on a journey to find out who she truly is, where she comes from. And then all of a sudden, these boys step in. And she won't give in to them easily, but she will fight them until she gives in with her heart. So this is a reverse harem paranormal romance. It was very good. I gave it 4 stars. I devoured this book. Truly, I did. I feel like the way that Ivy Asher built up this story, the backstory to Venna, I think it's Venna. The way that she built up her story and the way that she made her, you know, a strong heroine. And then the boys, they just brought more context into this already complex world with her. I cannot wait to read the next book. I think it says that it's coming out in January, I believe. But I am truly excited. I cannot wait. If you want a good reverse harem paranormal romance on here, definitely get this one by Ivy Asher. You will not be disappointed because there's so many secrets and so much things to unveil that I just cannot wait to dive back into it. So the next book that I read is Bound to the Dark Elf King, which is book 1 of the Fate and King series by Jesikah Grayson. Again, this is another one that if you like the Married to Magic series by, I can't even remember her name. If you do like the Married to Magic series, though, this is another one that you will like, but this one does have spice in it, so know that going in. But basically, Inara has been told to always fear the Dark Elf King Varys, but she is captured one night and taken directly to the Dark Elf King, where she is in fear until she meets Varys' eyes. He claims that she is his fated mate, but how can she be when humans and elves have been in a centuries-long war against each other? So this is a an elf-human fantasy romance. This book I gave 3 stars. It's okay. I do like the Married to Magic series, but I feel like this book was way too insta-lovey, way too, like, you're mine, you're going nowhere kind of thing. Like, I just feel like the main female character was given no choice. And I didn't like that about the romance. So if you do like the Married to Magic series, you might want to give this one a try, because I really think that you might like that. The next book that I read was my very first 5-star read out of this whole Kindle Unlimited experience. It is called A Forest of Stars, which is book 1 in the Court of Starlight and Darkness series by Lindsay Hall. So basically, when the Fae King comes for Sia, who is a normal girl, she is frightened he will find out that she is human and not Fae. She is competing in a deadly competition and doesn't want to give away that she is in fact human. But when the king looks at her, he has fire in his eyes of passion. And why does she burn right back for him? So this book was so good. I loved the competition aspect. I loved how she never gave up. She fought tooth and nail for everything, but she also kept her secret so close to her and didn't try to give it away to anybody. I do love the romance in here. I thought it was very well done. The court was, built up well. The story development was amazing. I love all of the characters and their personalities. So if you want a good fae fantasy romance that is not insta-lovey, that is, something that you will just devour, pick this book up. It's a 5-star read. It's truly amazing. I think there's a lot of people talking about it right now. It's starting to gain momentum. So definitely pick it up. I think you will like it. The next 2 books are the last 2, well, not the last 2, I have one other. But the next 2 books are 2 books that are very well talked about, so I'm definitely not going to hit on them very, very much. But basically, you have Broken Bonds by Bree, which is book 1 in the Bonds That Tie series. So Oleander is bonded to 5 men, and basically her mom dies. Something happens that night. Whenever her mom dies, she gets terrified, doesn't want anyone to know, so she runs away from her bonded, away from her life, and is in hiding for 5 years until she is found by her bonded. Now, in this community, being bonded to your mates is kind of like celebrated. It's something that's looked, highly on. So for her to run away from her bonded, they didn't understand. They're angry, rightfully so. So it's kind of like a bully romance. I really enjoyed it. 5 beautiful stars. I could not get enough of it. I will be continuing on with the series. So all the hype that is going on about this book and this series, 100% worth it. Pick it up. It is dark. Make sure that you read the trigger warnings for that. The next book is Untainted, which is book 1 in the Crystal Island series by Lilian T. James. So this book is another one that is talked about. However, it fell very flat for me. I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars only because I even made a note on here. Only because I enjoyed the smut enough for it to be 1 star more. So I can't believe I made that note to myself. But Vera is very skilled at wielding a weapon and pretending to be human, but her anger gets the best of her. She confronts a guy who she thinks is stalking the crown prince and discovers that she is in fact not human. He wants to take her back to his people because she possesses something that his people desperately need. I was intrigued by this plot. I loved, the synopsis of the series, and I was very, very for it because I got the bookish box edition of it as well. Couldn't wait to read it, and it fell so flat for me. There is no story development. There is no plot. This book is literally sex. That's all it is. It's just sex. I was so upset with it. Don't get me wrong. Clearly, I liked the smut at some point, but it just did not work for me. So I'm very sad about it. If you want a book that really doesn't have a lot of plot and a lot of story development, definitely pick up this book. The smut was done pretty well. I just don't know if I'm going to continue on with the series. So the last book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I did in my October wrap-up because I have been reading these books over the past few weeks. And that is called An Untraditional Fairy Tale by Cori, Zahara. So I'm not going to dive deep into this. I've already put it in my wrap-up. But on here, basically you have, I don't even remember who the main characters' names are anymore because it was honestly terrible. It's a dark romance where this female main character is taken and kidnapped and raped and abused, and God love her, everything done to her. There's non-consensual sex. There is just everything going on. And all of a sudden you have this billionaire guy who is a knockoff of Christian Grey and literally tries to swoop in to be her Prince Charming, and they're like, oh, we love each other, whatever. And I just couldn't. That's what I'm going to say about it. I just couldn't. It was terrible. If you want to hear my full review on it, please go back and watch my October wrap up because it was not pretty. Do not suggest. If you want a good, dark, very, very dark romance, definitely find anything else. Not this book. It's definitely not it. So those are my 20 Kindle Unlimited books that I read over the past few weeks. I've had these building up for probably 2 years. I would probably say 2 years. And I just had enough of it. I wanted to get rid of them because I wanted to put more and exciting ones on there that I have been excited to read. But I just didn't want to get rid of any of these because I was like, what if I would like some of them? Some of them were really good. Some of them were terrible for me. And some were just in the middle. So had a good time with it. If you have read any of these books, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of them. Check me out on my Instagram. Come chat books with me there. Stick around on my channel. I got some more content coming up. My jaw is killing me from how much I have talked. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Definitely like it and definitely subscribe. And I will see you all next time. Bye.